"This is a courtroom, not a military parade ground," shouted Judge Patricia Hamilton. She stared at Staff Sergeant David Jackson's Purple Heart medal and ordered him to remove it. The courtroom fell silent. This medal represented David's lost leg in Afghanistan, the 6 soldiers he'd saved that day. But the judge didn't know that the veteran sitting in the back of the courtroom wouldn't stay silent in the face of such disrespect. Welcome to Human Stories. Before we begin this tale of honor, respect, and unexpected justice, tell me in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us keep them alive. Riverside County Courthouse was unusually crowded that day. The case was actually a simple traffic accident lawsuit, David Jackson's collision with a civilian vehicle. But everyone had come to see David, because David wasn't just any veteran. He was a Marine who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and held the Purple Heart, Bronze Star, and Combat Infantry Badge. Judge Patricia Hamilton, 58, was a woman of strict discipline. She'd spent 25 years in the legal profession, the last 10 as a judge. She had no military background and didn't understand military culture. To her, the courtroom was only a place of law and order, with no room for sentimentality. David's story, however, ran much deeper. In 2018, while serving in Afghanistan's Helmand province, his convoy had been hit by an IED attack. He'd lost his left leg in the explosion, but had carried 6 wounded comrades to safety. For this action, he'd received the Purple Heart. After returning home, he'd struggled to adapt to life with a prosthetic leg. PTSD, adjustment problems, difficulties in civilian life. Typical veteran issues. But David never complained. He wore his medals with pride, especially his Purple Heart, at every formal occasion. When he came to court that day, he'd worn his dress uniform with all his medals. To him, the courtroom was also a formal place, and as a Marine, he should show respect. "Defendant David Jackson, approach the bench," called the clerk. David stood up, walking with a slight limp to the witness stand. His prosthetic leg made a slight sound with each step, but David didn't mind. As he sat at the stand, his medals gleamed on his chest. Judge Hamilton frowned when she saw him. The medals were reflecting light, drawing attention. This disrupted her perfect courtroom order. "Mr. Jackson," Judge Hamilton said sternly, "remove those medals." A slight murmur rose in the courtroom. People couldn't understand what she'd said. David was surprised. "Ma'am? You heard me. Remove those medals. This is a courtroom, not a military display area." Confusion appeared on David's face. "Ma'am, these are my service medals. I don't care. I don't allow anything distracting in my courtroom. Remove them." This time, complete silence fell over the courtroom. People held their breath. Even David's lawyer was shocked. David's hand slowly moved to his Purple Heart. This medal meant everything to him. His fallen comrades in Afghanistan, the soldiers he'd saved, his own sacrifice. "Ma'am," he said with a trembling voice, "this is my Purple Heart. It was awarded for being wounded in action." "That doesn't concern me," Judge Hamilton said. "Either you remove it or you leave my courtroom." That's when something changed in the courtroom. An elderly man in the back row stood up. George Murphy, a Korean War veteran with a chest full of medals. "Your Honor," Murphy said firmly, "asking him to remove that medal is disrespectful." Judge Hamilton looked at him. "Mr. Murphy, sit down or you'll leave my courtroom." But Murphy didn't sit. Instead, other veterans began standing up, one by one, silently, not protesting, but simply showing respect. A Vietnam veteran stood up. Then a Gulf War veteran. Then an Iraq War veteran. Then their wives, children, friends. Within 5 minutes, half the courtroom was standing. Judge Hamilton began to panic. "Everyone will sit." "This is disorder." But no one sat. They stood silently, showing their support for David. David's eyes filled with tears. He was witnessing solidarity he'd never expected. Just then, the courtroom door opened, and a group of uniformed soldiers entered. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Thompson, David's former commander, stood at the back of the room with 6 soldiers. "Judge Hamilton," Thompson said officially, "the request for Staff Sergeant Jackson to remove his medals is an affront to military honor." "This courtroom is not a military court," Hamilton shouted. "No," Thompson said, But this man holds the Purple Heart. He was wounded for his country, and you're forcing him to remove his symbol of honor." At that moment, a reporter from the local TV station entered the courtroom. Someone had tipped off the media. Judge Hamilton saw the situation was spiraling out of control. Court recessed for 30 minutes, but no one moved. Everyone continued supporting David. During the recess, Thompson approached David. "Sergeant, how are you doing?" "I'm fine, sir. But I don't understand why this became such a big deal." Thompson smiled. "Because you're not just David Jackson. You're our brother, and we don't abandon our brothers." 30 minutes later, court reconvened. But this time, the atmosphere had completely changed. Judge Hamilton was tense, while David felt strong with the support behind him. "Court is back in session," Hamilton said. But her voice wasn't as certain anymore. David returned to the witness stand. The Purple Heart still gleamed on his chest. "Mr. Jackson," Hamilton said, this time in a softer voice, "you may keep your medal." But David stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to say something." "Go ahead." David looked at everyone in the courtroom. "This medal isn't mine. It's a memorial to my comrades who died in that bomb blast in Afghanistan. Sergeant Martinez, Corporal Williams, Private Johnson. They didn't make it home. I wear this medal in their memory." The silence in the room deepened. "And if this court can't show respect for this medal, then I don't want to be in this courtroom either." David removed the medal, but didn't place it on the table. Instead, he pressed it to his chest. "But I'm an American Marine, and I respect American justice, so I'll accept your decision." Judge Hamilton remained silent for a long time. The atmosphere in the room had affected her. "Mr. Jackson," she finally said, "you are found not guilty in this case, and you may continue to wear your medal with pride." The room erupted in applause. David stood with tears in his eyes. As he left the courtroom, Thompson approached him. "Proud of you, Sergeant." David smiled. "I won't forget them, sir. None of us will." What happened that day at Riverside County Courthouse was discussed in local news, on social media, and in veteran forums. Criticism of Judge Hamilton began, with calls for her resignation. A week later, Hamilton resigned. The judge who replaced her had a veteran's welcome sign placed in the courtroom. David became a speaker for veteran rights after that day. He wore his Purple Heart at every speech, keeping his comrades' memory alive. "Medals aren't just metal," he would say. "They are memory, honor, sacrifice, and no court can judge these values." Because that day in the courtroom, it wasn't just a medal that was defended. The honor of the entire veteran community was defended. The incident became a turning point in how military service was respected in civilian courts across the country. Judge Hamilton's replacement, Judge Maria Santos, implemented new protocols ensuring that military decorations would be treated with appropriate respect in legal proceedings. David's story spread far beyond Riverside County. Veteran organizations across the nation used it as an example of the importance of standing up for military honor. The video of the courtroom standing in solidarity went viral, garnering millions of views and comments from supporters worldwide. 3 months later, David received an invitation to speak at the Marine Corps birthday ball. Standing before hundreds of Marines, he wore his Purple Heart and spoke about the true meaning of brotherhood. "That day in court," he said, "I learned that service doesn't end when you take off the uniform. It continues in how we support each other, how we stand together, and how we ensure that sacrifice is never forgotten or diminished." The Purple Heart on his chest caught the light as he spoke, not just as a symbol of his own sacrifice, but as a reminder that some honors transcend any courtroom, any authority, and any attempt to diminish their significance. In the end, Judge Hamilton's attempt to silence military honor had only amplified it. David's story became a rallying cry for respect, dignity, and the unbreakable bonds between those who serve. And in courtrooms across America, judges began to understand that some symbols are too sacred to be treated as mere accessories. They are the very essence of what makes freedom possible. If you were in David's position, would you have removed your medal? Have you ever witnessed disrespect toward military service that needed to be challenged? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story of honor and solidarity resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe. Because at Traces of the Past, we believe that respect for service should never be optional.